hope you're having an awesome day. Are you ready to better understand yourself, better understand your mindset, rewire your brain for abundance, and just be able to take that jump that you've always wanted to do to accomplish your biggest dreams? I am Esty Rappaport, your host of the Life Fix University podcast. I am so excited that you're here with us today. Today we've got a really cool guest, someone who's done something that most other people just would dream about. And honestly, for him, it's been a dream too for over 10 years. Noah Scott is a adventure seeker and experience creator who makes these really cool retreats all around the world in different places for creators to come and connect and to really push themselves forward. He is the founder of The Big Possible and the host of the Big Possible podcast. And he's also the author of Launch, Your Guide to Starting Your Own Business. Thank you so much, Noah, for being here. I'm excited to be speaking with you. You want to start by telling us something you did as a kid that your parents still laugh about today?
I love that question. It's just so much fun. Thanks for having me here. So I must have been about 4, and I got these laser guns for Christmas, and they would go like, wee, 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 wee. So I grabbed that gun and I just held my finger on that trigger the whole day until my brother got so mad because it was just nonstop. Wee, 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 wee. And so my brother just takes the laser gun and he goes and buries it in the desert somewhere. Like 2 years later, I must have been now 6 or 7 or something. I guess I was digging in the desert and I found these laser guns and I'm running around the house now with this. My brother got they still worked. Yeah. 2 years later, he got so mad.
That is epic. Where did you live that you lived near the desert?
In Palm Springs. I grew up in Palm Springs, which is about 2 hours outside of LA for the international listeners. But yeah.
Oh yeah. So that hot weather there.
Yeah. Lots of lizards and
I'm like, I just need the sun.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you want to tell us how you got started in doing what you do, which is like just way too cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's a long story, really. Like everything, there's full of twists and turns. I never thought that I would be in this situation. I kind of always dreamed that I would be traveling the world, hosting events. I always had this dream that I could do this, but I always thought I wasn't worthy of it. That it was just it was like a pipe dream that I had to maybe one day I'll be ready for that, but I have all this other stuff to focus on. And so, I think my entrepreneurial journey really started at some point in my 20s. I started a fashion company that kind of failed. I had a soap company that failed, and most of my 20s, I was just a wreck. I was just out drinking, going to parties, and I was a complete delinquent. And by the time I hit 30, it was 29. I was like, something needs to change. So I remember being broke, in debt, and just kind of lost. So I packed everything up, sold all my stuff, and I went to Japan on a soul-searching quest across the country. I walked 500 kilometers on foot. And that journey, there's something about a pilgrimage, right? Where you're open to synchronicity, you're open to new thoughts. And I guess I found it then. But I was also a little too afraid to grasp that dream. So I thought, okay, the next easiest thing for me to do, while my dream was to travel the world and host events, eventually having a boutique hotel somewhere. But the thing that came to me was, okay, before I can get to that point, I need to develop a bunch of skill sets. I need to build a book of business and connections and referrals so that when I'm ready, I can make that happen. Easiest thing to do seemed like starting a film company. So I'm like, all right, I don't know anything about film. I'm just I had an iPhone and I was recording a little travel documentary. So I come back to LA, I find an internship with a director, and before I know it, I put up a shingle saying that I have a production company. I got a team together and we started filming, a couple short films for actors, and we kept getting better. I would be 8 hours a day. I'd be working for the production for the director that was at my internship. And then the other 8 hours a day, I would be grinding. I'd be studying everything about editing, filmmaking, directing. I would be building the website for my company. And before we knew it, we were busy. We were making money. And eventually we got our own office. I had to move out of the place I was at, stop working at the internship. And we just got busy enough that we could then produce a feature film. And that was kind of the pinnacle of my production career. And I could keep going with the story, but I mean, we can pause here, like we'll take a breath, eat some popcorn. How do you?
I'm like, just want to hear more of it. It's like such an interesting story, so much going on there. I'm curious, why do you think this time it worked over all the things that you've tried in the past that failed?
Yeah, eventually enough is enough, I think. And I think that was really where it was at before. In every path, I really didn't know what I was doing. It was a sheer determination. When I was doing the fashion line, I just guessed. And it was like the early days of the internet where like I put up something on MySpace and I sold through a bunch of t-shirts, which was great. I cleared out all my inventory, but I had no idea what to do next. And it was scary. And it was like, I don't know. And I didn't have any support really. I just had a small circle of friends that were kind of like, oh, these are cool. But the difference with the film company was that I had a team, and that was something that we had each other's backs, and everyone was, my partner, Brett, and I would stay, 11, 12 hours in the office, just grinding. We work on the weekends. And when you have somebody supporting you like that, it helps you go that extra mile. And also the traction was starting to be there. We had started to build a little bit of momentum, and we were getting this feedback from the community that what we were doing was good. The products that we were delivering were great. And I always had that mentality of, let me go above and beyond. Let me keep the prices at a point where the customer feels good about what they're paying for. I feel good about the work I'm doing. And they're getting a great quality experience. And so we kind of had that mentality, and every customer that came to produce a short film, we went above and beyond. And I think that's really the thing that made it work this time was, okay, we're grinding, but we're also putting a lot of love into the products that we're delivering. And so I think that plus the team, all those factors really just kind of hit it to the point where this has to work.
Yeah,
it was also,
how were you able to hire a team with no
with no money? Yeah, because I was completely broke. I just picked up so my buddy Tata he was familiar with sound, and so I called Tata up and I said, hey Tata, I think I need a sound guy for my production company. Do you want to come out? And we just paid by the shoot. It was like, if we had a customer, then we just split it up evenly. At the time, there was not really any thought that went into it. It was like, okay, we got paid $500. We just split it between 4 people, just down the middle, and there was no money that went to the company or to the gear. It was
just to live, right?
Yeah. Eventually, we were like, oh, we need to actually take 20% and put that towards taxes, towards the LLC paperwork, and actually build a business. But at the beginning, it was just straight up, let's just get together. We'll use, people that have the skill sets. And it was about how easy can we make it? And eventually then we started thinking of, and Brett was really good with numbers and business. And so he was able to help out. But yeah, that was really just a trial and error. And after a couple of years, we finally had the system that was working, and it was great.
So
first couple of years, this was about 10 years ago. So it was about a decade ago that we started that company. It was actually, today's the anniversary. It was Valentine's Day.
Wow.
It was our first shoot.
Happy anniversary.
Look at that.
What happened to your company afterwards?
So we kept that around for about 5 or 6 years. After we produced the feature film, I went ahead and just I sold my shares, and I went off to work in a marketing agency because I really wanted to learn marketing. and business, and I wanted to be doing like more on the commercial side, and I was done with narrative. And so Brett continued running the company, and he still does to this day. So the company's still around and it's doing great. But yeah, I've stepped away, and then wow, this is just story time, I guess, huh? It's just story time.
I know, I'm so interested. Like, I have so many other questions to ask you, but my curiosity right now is on the story. So my brain just can't go off it.
All right. So 5 years then, I had the next 5 years I spent working directly with a marketing agency. I had a mentor, Eric Sue, and I just soaked up as much as I could about marketing now. And during this time, I was like, okay, I have this cushy agency job. I'm like getting paid, a decent amount. I'm like, it's nice. And I'm learning all these cool skills about content, marketing, branding. And meanwhile, I'm like leveling up all of my graphic design skills. I started painting on the side. So I held an art exhibit. I was trying to figure out it's like I still wanted to find that thing that would be my calling. And I didn't know how to do it. I was like, okay, I need to have a company. I want to have another company again. I know I don't want to do film anymore. So I would experiment. I was doing everything from candle making to painting to coaching. I wrote and published a book. All of this was to build to the point where I could be where I'm at now. Basically, I've got all this leverage, these skills, and a network, of really powerful people, really amazing people. And then it was time to take the leap. It was time to leave the corporate job and begin the thing that I knew I was meant for. That 10 years ago, when I was on that path in Tokaido, that I had this vision of hosting events and retreats around the world, having people come and spend time together, talking about growth, hanging out. That was the big possible. So it kind of came through a series of eureka moments as I was building the coaching business out. And I said, you know what? I don't need to take the baby steps anymore. I need to sink my teeth into this big dream and embrace it. And so here I am now, about to launch my first retreat in Puerto Vallarta in about 30 days in March 19th. I've got an epic 6-floor villa with like 9 bedrooms and wonderful speakers coming out talking about like, how do you make better connections in life? How do you grow? So far, the guest list is phenomenal. Just really strong people coming out, like software developers, agency owners. And I'm like sitting here thinking, a year ago, I was trying to start this coaching business with my book. And it was like, okay, I have to earn my stripes before I can do these retreats. Like, I know I'm like reading my vision and I'm like, okay, in 3 years from now, I'm going to be hosting retreats around the world. They're going to be amazing. There's going to be awesome workshops. People are going to be learning. And I had a call with my coach and we're like, why are we suffering with these baby steps? You don't need to do these one-on-one coaching calls with like people who are just like trying to figure out what their next career is going to be. Just embrace it. Like, look at the thing that's in your vision. This is what your path is. Stop like making yourself go through the penance of the baby steps and just do the big thing.
So what fear came up for you in this process? And how did you have to like change your mindset that like, actually, I could do this now?
So many. The biggest one would be probably, it's all about the mindset. So the biggest one would be the imposter syndrome. That is huge. It's like, who am I to write a book, right? So I just did it anyway, whatever. Let's just get it out there. Who am I to host a retreat? Like, and it's funny that on the outside, I start telling people this is what I want to do. And the crazy thing is that everybody comes back to me and says, Noah, that is the perfect thing for you. You are so good at that. That is what you should be doing. But meanwhile, I'm like, oh, I need to wait till I have like a mailing list. Oh, I need to wait till I have like, a bunch of rich friends. And like, you don't need to wait for any of that. You just need to go. And once you set the intention out there and you put a timeline down and you say, okay, this is happening at this date. The moment where it all just felt right was I found the spot on Airbnb, the villa that I wanted to host this. So I just went on Airbnb. I went and I found this epic villa and I pulled the trigger. I just found a date in March. That was like, this was back in November or December. It was probably December. And I'm like, Geronimo, and I just pulled the trigger. And it was like, as soon as that happened, then I fired off a few texts to the people that I had, maybe like 10 friends that I thought would be, all right, these guys, they have money, they're doing great things. They're cool. I would want to hang out with them over the weekend and talk business. So I sent them a text, and, 7 of them were like, I wish I could be there. That looks cool, but sorry, I don't think I can make it. One of them was like, holy cow, this is incredible. I've been looking for something like this. I am so fired up. I want to be there. How can I help you make this happen? And that was the feedback that I needed to say, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
And I just, you just kept going. I just kept getting more, you just keep putting the effort out. And it's funny because I was on a live this morning talking about this. There was a guest on my old podcast called, his name's Justice Ukagri, a good friend of mine. And he has this thing where he says, don't let data be your source of encouragement. Don't let your feelings be the source of encouragement. And so often we will give up because we feel intimidated about something, or we feel some imposter syndrome, or we feel that something's not right. But if you just put yourself out there and say, all right, I'm going to let data tell me whether this is a good idea or a bad idea. And you say, okay, if I message 100 people, and if I get one person to say yes out of those 100 people, then that means that all I have to do if I want 10 people is to message 1,000 people. And that's all the data that you need. There's no room for imposter syndrome, because if the numbers tell you that your idea will work as long as you contact 100 people or 1,000 people, whatever, that's it. And so that's all the encouragement sometimes you need.
Yeah, you literally have to take the first step, take action, like you said, pull the trigger, do something that that was going to make you have to do it. And then step by step, you'll be able to figure it out. Because if you have to try to think about everything that you need to do to make this event happen, you just would never have done it. So yeah, you end up finding the right people, like you said, along the way. And obviously there's challenges and things that come up, but you let that data actually help you. Okay, so let's move a little bit into understanding and changing your mindset for abundance.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I'm so glad you bring this up, because it is the number one thing that, if you can wrap your head around this and just build a habit out of thinking positively, there is so much that you're going to be able to do. And it does not happen once. This is something you need to do repeatedly. And so to channel this thinking of abundance, right? It's not like one day you just wake up and I'm abundant now. That's amazing. You just have to keep going and keep believing and keep reinforcing it, because there's a delay somewhere in the universe, whatever this is, that you have to vibrate the universe into submission. And I often think of abundance and your mindset as a Waze map. That if you ever type in some destination and you say, okay, I'm going to go to this destination, and if you go off track, it's going to reroute you, and it's going to sort of say, okay, now but we're still going in the same direction, which is positive thinking, right? Every day you're going to have things that show up that throw you off track. Your job is to not let those keep you off track, but to reroute yourself back to positive thinking. And so, so if we're talking about rewiring the brain, right? So ultimately there's discipline that comes in. You're going to have to remember that, okay, I need to always think positively. And the philosophy behind this is really simple. If all validation is self-validation and all judgment is self-judgment, that means that you have the power to actually create whatever you want in your head. And so if you start thinking that you're capable of doing something, if you start thinking that you have the potential to do something, and every time you feel the doubt creep in, you subtly reroute your mind to start thinking positively and say, okay, I hear you, but actually, this is what I believe now. This is the narrative that I'm going to tell myself about this. And you keep doing that consistently. Before long, the universe is going to start to recognize that it can't mess with you. Like, you are going to consistently bounce back to that vibration of positivity, belief, and strength. And so whenever you get that feeling of weakness, remember, it's temporary. You can just simply reroute yourself back to the path, stay on the path, and you're going to continue making progress towards that path of abundance.
Yeah, and over time, it gets easier and easier, like any other habit.
Absolutely.
Question: Why do you think the brain like defaults to the opposite of positive? Like, doesn't think positively at all?
Biology, straight up. Yeah, we're programmed through technology's gone so fast, and like we've continuously had to work really hard. You look at the history of humanity, it's like berries and stuff, like they grow, but then there's famines, there's all kinds of stuff that's going to go wrong. And so our biology is built on tens of thousands of years of things going wrong all the time. And so, like you have to have faith, but the biology of the body is designed to keep you safe ultimately. And the crazy thing is, if you want to have success, sometimes you're going to have to take risks. And you look at the Greek sort of like philosophies, some things that you see in Marcus Aurelius's writing and stuff. The entire philosophy, like a Stoic philosophy, is about withholding your physical urges and trusting in your strength. And the more you do that, the more your strength improves, the more you're capable you are of handling any situation. Whatever life throws at you, if you can become strong enough to take it and take it with a smile, you're going to be like set on a course for success. And so that's really where the discipline comes in, right? So discipline is your ultimate weapon when fighting the limitations of biology. So if you can understand that, okay, if I have discipline and I build this habit and I start to enjoy the process of discipline, where I like doing the hard things more than the things that are gratifying. Like if I learn to love reading a good like business book versus watching Squid Games, I'm gonna be, that's the secret, right? You just have to learn to love growth and discipline a little bit more than the things that don't really get you anywhere.
Yeah, I love that so much. Like, as someone who hates watching exactly for that reason, because I started as a kid, just loving like that. I'll much faster read a business book over something else. I totally understand where you're coming from, but I'm thinking of someone who's not in that position right now. It's really nice and it sounds much easier than it actually is. But like when push comes to shove, it's hard. It's hard in that situation to go and make that jump and the starting right always takes the most energy and the most discipline to do that. So what do you suggest to someone in such a situation?
Like, is their first either dream that they're chasing, their creative calling, or anything like that?
Anything of that sort. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say at the beginning, the thing you want to build more than anything is leverage and momentum, right? So if you think of leverage is the ability to get things done with less effort. So anytime you have a big rock that you want to move, you use like a little stick, and now suddenly it's a lot easier than using your own muscles. Often, what happens with people when they're starting is they get so intimidated of the task that they'll maybe get in there. It seems really, really big, and before they know it's too intimidating, and they give up. And so if you break it down into smaller things and you say, okay, one, how do I make this more achievable? How do I break this thing down into sprints, into small little chunks, and say, okay, in 30 days, I'm going to do this. If I want to run a marathon, for example, what are the things I have to do every week? What are the things I have to do every day? And you just break it down into small bite-sized pieces. And if we start to think in terms of leverage as well, so on your path to achieve this goal that you have, there are certain things that you can do to give yourself more power overall. So some things like building an audience, everything is easier with an audience. If you have a product that you want to launch and you're not quite ready to take that leap, you can start today by building an audience so that when you do finally have all the boxes checked off and you're ready to take the leap, now you have more leverage with an audience that you're going to be able to go. So it might be something like starting a YouTube channel or starting a podcast. Your community and your relationships is also an incredible form of leverage, right? So if you start to cultivate your relationships a little bit more, maybe it's just jumping on and doing lives every day with your community. That can really come in handy when it comes time to take the leap. You're going to have a support group that if you just jump without building that leverage, it's going to be a lot more lonely and a lot more difficult. So think about other things like knowledge, skills, discipline. All of these are also forms of leverage. So if you tighten up, find ways that you can improve your power, it'll make things a lot easier when you actually do take the leap.
Yeah, I also see people getting really stuck the whole time in like building their leverage without actually taking that leap and let's say launching the product, doing what they really want to do. How do you know at what point, okay, I'm building leverage, I'm learning all those skills, I'm building my audience, whatever you have to do for your dream to like now it's actually time to do it.
Yeah. Every adventure begins at one day, you have to take that first step. And the mindset that I think will really help is that it's going to change. You're going to be fine. Those two things are enough, I think, to give you the courage to take the first step. Because nothing really bad is going to happen if you do give your dream a shot and you just take action. And even if it's the wrong idea, it doesn't matter, because as you start moving, you're going to gain clarity and perspective that you didn't have before. And that clarity and perspective will guide you to the next path. But the worst thing is staying still. That's the absolute worst thing. The best thing, the thing you need to be afraid of, the biggest risk of all, is not taking a risk. You look at like why I read a quote from Cody Sanchez not that long ago, where she talked about how and she's called a contrarian thinker or something like that. So what she does is she talks about how people should buy businesses and start businesses and basically be a business owner rather than an employee. And her thing was that she was like, people think starting a business is risky or owning a business is risky, but the real risk is kind of being an employee, if you really think about it. Because here you are putting all of your livelihood on one source of income that at any moment your boss could just decide that, you know what? Yeah. I'm paying you more than you're worth. And so I'm not getting the ROI, and they could have a meeting and then suddenly you just get cut. And it doesn't matter how much effort you put into that. What do you walk away with?
Yeah.
Maybe a severance if you're lucky. You start a business, everything's in your control. And sure, like the launch up is going to be hard. You have to invest in certain things. You have to build some, you might have your capital on the line. But ultimately, that strength that you're going to get out of that is so much more fulfilling in the long run. And you have so much more capability to weather the storms once you have that solid like foundation built.
Yeah. Plus there's like no caps to like your income when you're a business owner versus like an employee. So you're really growing in all aspects, both in the inner part, your skills, your mentally, emotionally, the resilience that you need for it. And also like money-wise, you're also, it's much more worth it.
But it's scary. I'm not going to lie. It's scary. There's a trap that happens when you're an employee. I've been there for like the last 5 years, and you've got this cushiness, the safety blanket. And at some point you're like, I know I should drop this safety blanket because I'm worth more and I know I can do it. But what if it doesn't work out? And you get all these doubts that start to creep in. And so with that, I would definitely say one of the strongest things that you could do is get a coach. Maybe if you don't have money to pay for a coach, you can find a really good friend and ask them for support. Keep sending messages to your friends until you find somebody that can. Everyone has like at least somebody in their network that they can lean on. And when you genuinely ask for advice for somebody and you're like, hey, I've seen, like, you find someone who's done what you want to do, right? So, I mean, like, you can send me a message as well. And I'm like, all right, I'll at least take the time to listen to you, figure out where you're at, and, and try to help you formulate the next path, right? But that's the thing with my coach, that was where I found the strength. And you could also start to think about all the things that could go wrong and then find solutions so that there is nothing to fear. You look at all the fears and you say, okay, is this fear justified? Right? Let's look at the money aspect. Okay, well, what happens if I run out of money? Hold on. How many friends do I know that would let me crash on the couch if things go wrong? How many, do I have family members that can support me? Like, okay, at least maybe they're not going to pay my rent, but are they going to be able to give me food? If, I can go stay on the couch, they can give me food until I figure out the next move. Do I have friends that maybe I have 15 friends that are kind of wealthy or well off. Maybe I could ask each of them for $1,000 to support, to kind of be an angel investor in my idea.
Yeah, I think
so many paths.
Going back to what you said earlier of building that leverage, if right now you're in the position where you're not ready to jump, you could build that leverage, build that audience, those skills. So then it's like, okay, now I have the audience, the jump is not as big and you could make it work that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Audience, friends, investors, whatever, however you want. Yeah.
Any leverage that will make it easier for you. Yeah. Could, like you said, it could even be a skill. The coach is also part of one. All of it. Yeah. Okay. So I could go on about this forever because I think it is so important. I think you also touhed on a really important part about rewiring your brain. It doesn't happen overnight and it's a habit and it constantly has to be worked on because you're literally creating new neuron connections and neural pathways that have to be strengthened stronger than your previous ones. Make those gut weaker and your new ones stronger. So I appreciate that. Before I get to our last question, where could we connect with you and learn more about you?
So I'm putting all my focus into my new company called The Big Possible. I've got a blog, podcast. I'm doing daily interviews, kind of like these, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so there's that. So thebigpossible.com, that's pretty much where you're going to find everything. My book launched, The Guide to Start Your Own Business. It's on Amazon. What else? You can just find me on social at Follow Noah. And next retreat, you can find that on the website as well. That'll be in March. I'm not sure when this is going to go live, but that's coming up in March.
Or May or something.
Okay, so we'll probably actually, if you're listening in May, then the next one's most likely going to be in Morocco. I still haven't decided yet, but it'll be somewhere.
I love Morocco. Have you ever been there before?
I haven't, but I have so many good Moroccan friends that it's been on the list for a long time. So
culture, yeah, I love it. Okay, amazing. So, final question: how would you describe an extraordinary life, an extraordinary way of living without using goals, connection, and vision?
This is another quote from Marcus Aurelius. The secret to success is having good character and doing good deeds. That's it. I can't overcomplicate it because the more you really think about it, if you have good character, you're going to push yourself to do good things for the world. And you're not going to settle. You're not going to let yourself be complacent or comfortable. You're going to push yourself a little further. You ask yourself, am I really living at my limit? Am I really doing everything I can to live that extraordinary life? And then if you're doing good deeds, you're being of service. You know that the things that you're doing are contributing to the betterment of humanity or the world, or whatever sort of betterment we want to go with. But that's really it. The more complicated we make it, the harder it is to stay true.
Yeah, I love that so much. Yes. Are you living your limit is a really good question to ask yourself every single day. It's just going to grow, and you're going to push that line further and further and really do those extraordinary things. So thank you so much, Noah. I really appreciate your time here. And yes, we'll be in touch.
That was amazing. Thank you.
That's all for this episode of the Life Fix University podcast, but I have a huge favor to ask of you that will not only support the show, but will also help the people you love most. We are striving for 1 million downloads by the end of 2025, and we can't do this without your help. If you love this episode, please share it with 2 of your family and friends so they too can rewire their brains to have an extraordinary marriage. It was awesome spending time with you, and I'll see you on the next episode.